Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Joseph Ulmer, and I am part of the team here at Indus Space. So today, October 16th, is International Observe the Moon Night. Now, today, many different groups are going to be taking many different ways of looking at the moon, both through observation and studying its history and understanding our position as humans in our history and future in exploring it. But in this video, I want to take a very specific angle at looking at the moon. I want to explore Canada's role in lunar exploration, both past with the major historical moon missions of the last century, and into the future with the major moon missions that we have planned for this decade and the active role Canada is going to be playing in those. And I also want to take some time to spotlight the companies that are actually going to be involved in bringing that mission to life. So let's get into it. So Canada has always had a very active role in space technology and space exploration. And that really started for the country on September 29th, 1962. That was the day that Canada launched its first ever satellite, Alouette 1. Now, Alouette 1 was not only the first satellite that Canada launched, it was also the third country ever to launch a satellite into space. So we were right after the United States and the Soviet Union. So Canada, right from the beginning of the space race, had an active role in exploring space and developing space technology. And that would continue into the 1960s and 70s with roles in the Apollo missions. Now, one of the most famous missions of that whole decade was Apollo 11, because specifically of the fact that it was the first ever mission to put humans on the moon in 1969. So it was arguably the most famous space mission ever. And one little piece of trivia that not a lot of people know about that is that the legs of the Eagle, which was the lunar landing module that you see here, those were built here in Canada. They were built in Quebec by a Canadian company called Heru DevTech, and they beat out several major American companies for the contract of doing so. So they had a very major portion in that. So these legs here that you see on the lunar lander that gave those astronauts, those first ever astronauts, safe landing on the moon, those were designed in Canada. So that was kind of a very big first step that Canada was a part of. And of course, as someone who lives in Sudbury, I would be remiss not to include a little bit of information about when Sudbury was used for astronaut training. So in the early 1970s, astronauts who were training and would later be part of the Apollo 16 and 17 missions to the moon, they trained at various locations around the world to study the layout and the minerals and the type of work they would be doing. And one of the places they visited was Sudbury here in Canada. They explored the various rock formations that are in and around this area to get a similar sense of both the mineral composition on the moon and a little bit about what the kind of work they would be doing was like. So another way in which Canada played a big role in that. So those are also just sort of a brief little snippet of Canada's significant, but ultimately more minor role in historical lunar missions. I want to transition now over to the 2020s, because in this decade, there's a lot of renewed interest, both from private companies and national and international organizations in studying the moon. And there's going to be, so in the coming years, there's going to be a lot more missions exploring the moon, looking at the moon more closely, and Canada is going to be featured in a very active role in a lot of those. And I want to highlight just a few examples that you see here. So I'm sure a lot of you know what this is. This is arguably one of the most famous pieces of space technology Canada has ever sent up, and it's probably something most Canadians know about when they think of Canada's role in outer space. This is the Canadarm on the International Space Station. It's an external robotic arm that assists astronauts with repairs and other various tasks. Arguably one of the most famous pieces of space technology ever, and was Canada's big contribution to the International Space Station. Now, the International Space Station has been running for many, many years at this point. And now we're looking at what the possible next generation of space stations would look like. One of the big projects is the Lunar Gateway. This is going to be a brand new space station set to begin construction in various phases in 2024. And it is going to be, instead of orbiting in low Earth orbit close to the Earth like the space station does, this is going to orbit the moon. So it is going to be primarily in the moon's area of gravity. And this is like the International Space Station, this is an international cooperation from various space agencies, NASA, ESA, JAXA, Roscosmos, and of course the Canadian Space Agency. And of course, as part of that, Canada is designing another robotic arm. This is going to be Canadarm3 on the Lunar Gateway. This is also going to be designed and built in Canada. One thing not a lot of people realize about the original Canadarm is that the pieces of it here were built in Brampton, just in this general area. And so Canada is once again going to feature a major role in the Lunar Gateway as building part of the Canadarm3. Now, the Lunar Gateway is going to be built in various stages and is going to be part of a broader mission by NASA that is known as the Artemis mission. Now, these are going to include various missions, but among them are going to be the first crewed flights, so the flights with people, the first of those since Apollo. And that's going to play out in various phases here, but I want to, in particular, highlight Artemis 2, which has a target launch date of 2023. Because this is going to be a flyby of the moon, and it is going to feature it's going to feature 4 astronauts on it. So these are going to be the first astronauts since the 1970s in the Apollo days to go and visit the moon. They're going to do a flyby of the moon and Earth's gravity. And so there's going to be 4 astronauts on there. It's important. I wanted to highlight this because, of course, 3 of the astronauts are going to be American, but one of the astronauts who has not yet been selected as of the recording of this video is going to be a Canadian. So this is going to be the first Canadian to visit the area of the moon, and not only the first Canadian, but the first non-American, I should say. Everyone from the Apollo missions was an American. And so this is going to be the first, Canada's making a very major milestone here as the second country to send a person into the area of the moon. I should state, to be clear, that Artemis 2 here is going to be a flyby mission. So it's not actually going to land on the surface of the moon yet. It's going to pave the way, I suppose, for Artemis 3 in the following year, which will be a landing on the moon. And many countries are going to be, in this time, exploring the moon in their own ways. NASA is doing it with the Artemis mission. There's various other private companies and international organizations that are looking to explore the moon, as interest in it has revamped in recent years. And one of the major pieces of that is the Canadian Space Agency, CSA, announced this year that by 2026, they want to send their own lunar rover to the moon to study its surface and its features. So this is going to be Canada's very own lunar rover with an ideal launch date by 2026. This is all still in its early planning and development stages, but they have reached out to various Canadian companies to help sort of develop the technology that will ultimately go into the rover. And I want to spotlight those companies and their technologies really quickly here. So these are the Canadian companies that are really shooting for the moon in terms of these upcoming missions and what they have planned. I want to talk a little bit about these 3 in particular: NGC Aerospace, Canadensis, and Mission Control Space Services, or MCSS for short. Now, first of all, NGC Aerospace, they are a Canadian company. They are developing primarily guidance, navigation, and control systems for space missions. They're going to be partnering with the Canadian Space Agency, the CSA, for what the CSA plans for its own lunar missions, including plans for a lunar rover. So they may develop a lot of the navigation and controls that will go into that. Another major company that is going to be active in that is Canadensis Aerospace. Now, this is a Canadian space systems and vehicle development company, so they're going to also be an active role in developing the CSA's ultimate lunar missions, including the rover, because they are a vehicle development company. They will be the ones creating the key exploration systems for the CSA to use when it does get around to exploring the moon. Lastly, another major company based right here in Canada that is going to be a part of this broader mission is Mission Control Space Services Incorporated, or MCSS. They are a Canadian space robotics and technology company that already has a lot of amazing developments and technology under their belts. And they're going to be part of this broader Canadian Space Agency mission to the moon as well. But they also have more immediate plans in the near future to be on the moon. So they, in addition to working with the CSA, are working with a broad international team led by the United Arab Emirates, which plans to land its own rover on the moon in 2022. So that means, it's going to be an international cooperation, but when that happens, there's going to be a piece of Canadian technology and Canadian computer software and equipment next year that is going to be operating and working on the moon. So that's some very exciting stuff right there and something to look forward to. Now, if you want to look at the more human aspect of that, I want to show a little video by Mission Control Space Services, the MCSS, that really highlights their team and the work that's going into it. So let me just share that video really quick.
Did you hear? Mission Control is going to the moon.
I'm really excited.
I'm really excited.
I'm really excited about space exploration.
So excited to be part of this team to help take Canada to the moon.
Will one day be deployed on the moon itself.
We're going back to the moon.
And to work on the technologies that will take us back.
Something that we made is going to be on the moon.
We're going to be participating in an international mission and fly a Canadian computer with Canadian AI to help a rover navigate.
For science.
For exploration.
For innovation.
For students.
For Canada.
And for humanity.
Follow us on social media and stay tuned for more announcements as we take this giant leap into the future.
All right, so that's some very exciting stuff there for sure. So if developing that kind of technology or learning about what goes into it is something that interests you, I by all means encourage you to go explore these companies' websites and the kind of work that they do on their own. If you want to learn more about that kind of work from like a human perspective or the kind of careers that you could pursue in that right here in Canada, I absolutely recommend you look at this network here, which is the Canadian Lunar Research Network. This is a group of Canadian scientists, engineers, entrepreneurs, various other people that are leading Canada's development in lunar research. So if you are interested in seeing sort of the people side of this technology or the kind of careers that go into it, I absolutely recommend checking this out and seeing what kind of work is being done there. But this is just sort of a brief highlight of Canada's role, both in the past of lunar exploration and its very exciting near future in the roles it's going to be partaking. So I'm very excited to see what the future of lunar exploration from a Canadian side will be, and stay tuned to find that out.